All right, good morning. Today is Monday, November 28th. As of right now, I've got no one on with me, which is totally fine, but that gives me a chance to go over a couple things with you. I sent this email out a couple hours ago, and it has what we're going to be doing for the rest of the week on it. The first thing I'd like to do is to go over this, how to create an SQL Server database. So we'll do that momentarily. Then I'm going to go over this garthrecords.txt, but let's go over the actual email itself. All right, it says today, Monday, November 28th, 2022 will be part 2 of the database class project. We will talk databases today, including both MySQL and SQL Server. As mentioned, I have attached a PDF on how to create an SQL Server database, which I kind of created. I took an article and hacked it all up a little bit, and a data file I'm planning on using for our project to the email. Tomorrow will be part 3 and Wednesday will be part 4. You'll notice in there, and I'd like to tell you I did this on purpose, but I didn't. And that is Thursday is missing because I want to see where we are at that point. All right. And what I mean is, what I want to do is I'm going to show you right now where I hope to get. All right. And we'll see where we are by that point, for lack of better words. All right. Friday will be a lab period. It is possible that Thursday will be a lab period as well. So part 1 of this database project, as it says there, is worth 100 points, and it'll be due next Sunday, this Sunday, the one coming up, the 4th. It'll be due by midnight. All right. As it says, we'll talk about part 1 in class today, and it'll basically, as it says, there'll be everything that we've gone through this week with the project. I want you to save it to your own GitHub repository, upload the repository, and make sure that I can take a look at it. And again, that will be worth 100 points. We will get to a certain point this week. Then we will take it a little further next week. And then finally, the last week, I'm hoping we can finish the project as far as what we're going over in class by next week. And then the last week of class, you'll have to tidy it up, so to speak, and also do your portfolio. So remember, as of today, including today, we have 14 days left. We have Monday through Friday this week, Monday through Friday next week, and Monday through Thursday the following week. My hope is that you'll have everything turned in by Wednesday the 14th. And if that's the case, then Thursday the 15th, there's no reason to meet. All right. I'm hoping to spend that day as a grade day. All right. So it's a day that I can figure out all of your grades. I'm actually doing pretty well with grades. All right. Now, if you have turned in anything late to me in the last week or two, again, it's your responsibility when you do that to let me know that you turned something in, and you let me know what that is that you've turned in. The reason for that is I don't typically go back and back grade things unless somebody has let me know that, they are behind on something and they've caught up or whatever. All right. So let's take a look at this, how to create an SQL Server database, and we'll go on from there. So here it is right here. Again, you can see where I took it from, wikihow.com, create a SQL Server database. I don't want to read to you. All right. They go through the steps in here of using SQL Server Management Studio, which again is a free program that you can use in order to create databases, create tables in those databases, and manipulate that information using different queries. So they go through about, I think it's a 10-step process in here. And it says there, step 1, install the SQL Server Management Studio software. If you have not done so yet, so if you have not done that, because I asked you to do this last week, you can just go out and say SQL Server Management Studio download. All right, and you can take a look at what comes up in here. Here's the first one. All right, download SQL Server Management Studio. So that one should work fine. I wouldn't use any preview thing like they show in here. I'd use the most stable one that's been out there for a while. So I'm just looking at the first one that's here, and there it is. And somewhere in here, there it is, free download. All right, you should hopefully at least be able to download it. And I'd read through this first. It's not very long. That's all of it. I don't, the available languages doesn't matter. The what's new doesn't matter. All right, but you might want to just step through all of this stuff. Okay. There's probably going to be a lot in there that doesn't make sense. But ideally, when you get done, you will be able to come into here and under Microsoft SQL Server Tools 18, you will have a Microsoft SQL Management Studio. All right, and I do. When it comes up, it's going to look like this. I've shown you this before. We're going to actually get into this today. All right, so hopefully that's what's going to come up when you do all that. All right, so with all of that said, let's just continue on then. So it says the software is free. In order to connect, you will need this or a similar software. There's other ways you can do it. Don't worry about, we're not Mac users, so we don't need this. All right, it says to learn how to create databases. No, don't worry about that either. You want to use the SQL Server Management Studio. All right. Then in step 2, you start it up. I just showed you how to do that. All right. And here they say a dot. I didn't put anything in there. When it came up, it already was filled in for me. All right. So you shouldn't have to do anything special. You shouldn't have to put dot there. So again, when I did mine, it came up, and I'm hoping yours will act the same. But when I do this and bring it up, all right, you can see how I'm going to show you how similar mine is to theirs and how different mine is to theirs. All right, so let me remove this. It's not going to let me. So I've got here database engine, and then I've got my server name, local DB, MSSQL local DB. All right, where they've got a dot there. Don't put that there. Just leave it the way it is and click connect. All right, then it says locate the database folder. Well, let me open this up again. I'm sorry I keep bopping back and forth, but this is the only way I can think of doing this. So I'm going to locate the database folder. So let me bring this back up again. All right, in Object Explorer here, there's a bunch of explorers. Let's see. So connect database engine. I'm going to click the connect. This is where I showed you before. And hopefully over here, I'm going to have databases. There they are. There's my databases, including the ones we worked on the other day, that MMA books DB, and then I made a copy of it, which I called MMA2 books.db. We'll look at this in just a moment, okay? So that's the database folder. What I'm going to do in there in a couple minutes is I'm going to right mouse click on here, and I'm going to choose new database. All right. And it's got all the steps right in here. This is why I picked this particular article. All right. So again, I will right mouse click. I will choose new database. And, we'll give it a name. Probably, I'm just going to call it Garth Brooks DB for Garth Brooks database. Then we're going to create 2 tables inside of this. Again, I plan on running through all of this stuff with you in just a little bit. We're not going to do it right away, and you'll understand why, hopefully, in just a couple minutes. All right. All right. Let me double check something here. I want to double check and make sure I was still I was recording. So we'll create a table in there. All right, we'll actually create two of them. We'll make sure the table has a primary key. Remember that a primary key is a unique record identifier. In the first table that we create, which will be called albums, we will have an album ID. That will be our primary key. I'll show you how to set that up. In the second table we create, which is going to be called songs, we will have what's called a concatenated or a composite primary key, which will exist, which will contain two different fields. If you don't know why, just keep watching with me and hopefully you'll learn why. All right. Then we will go in, we will structure the tables. I'm going to give you all this information. All right. I'm going to ask that you follow and do everything the way I'm asking you to do it. All right. Then we will, finish it up. They talk in here about some of the different kinds of columns that you can create. All right. I've never really understood the difference between, like, there's a char and an n char. All right. I'd heard stories that when they first created this stuff, somehow there was a screw up. So rather than using char, it's recommended that you use nchar. And rather than you using varchar, you use nvarchar. Remember, char is a fixed length character field. So for instance, if I had a field called state that I wanted to double check or I wanted to assure you put in as a 2-character state abbreviation, I'd use char or nchar2. Now, most of the time you're going to be using varchar or nvarchar because you don't know exactly how big a certain field is going to be. This is the kind of thing we're going to do in just a bit. All right, then we will save the table. And finally, we'll add the data. And there's different ways that you can do all of this stuff. I just want you to realize there are different ways of doing this. I'm going to show you what I like to consider the easiest way of doing it. You may or may not agree. All right. I guess there's 12 steps in here. Then they tell you to execute the table to save the data. And literally that's going to just be clicking a button, which says that you want to save everything. All right, then you're able to go in and query the data or look at any of the data that's in there. Now, I'm going to show you the program where I want us to get. And this isn't even complete, but I want you to see this so you have an idea as to what's going on in here. All right. So let's see. I changed the color to purple just so I knew which one. This is a prototype, so to speak. You've already seen this. So it comes up. This is our main page, kind of a nice looking home page. I like to at least think it is. And then we go to our main page. Now this has changed. All right, there's more buttons here. There's this, there's this. So what is all this stuff? Right now, I've even broken the program, not on purpose, but when I come in there and do a load data, it doesn't show my data anymore. It will. All right. But what I want us to be able to do, this is going to bring up all 15 albums. But if I come through here and I type in, for example, the letter J, I know it's kind of hard to see here. I should make what's the writing in there bigger. But if I put in there the letter J, all right, then what I want this to do is to come up with only albums that have a J in their name. So this is going to be a way for us to use a where so that we can actually come in there and put in some search criteria, in other words. Let me change that here. So I'm going to bring this up, close this, bring that up, and I'm going to change the size on this. And we'll make it 20. Bold and Arial. All right, so now when I run this, all right, and I click here, and I do an album search, and I click over here, and I type in hello as an example, and I click album search, it should only show me those albums that have the word hello in them. And if there aren't any, it'll show nothing. All right. If I don't put anything in here and I click album search, it'll do the same thing as when I click load data. In other words, it should show everything. All right. So what's this over here? Well, when we come in and we grab, for example, the last album that Garth Brooks recorded was called Fun. So if I were to come in here and I click load data and I've got all 15 of my albums here and I click, let's say that's Fun right there. Then that album, that picture from Fun will appear right here. So it's going to go and it's going to grab that picture from the last one that's right there. All right. So in other words, when I click here on right there, if it was Fun, the Fun will come there and it'll grab that one that's right there. All right. Now, one thing I've noticed in here too, some of these pictures are just terrible. Well, there's his hat, etc. You know, it's not really doing a very good job. All right. So let's see real quickly if we can change that. So let me exit here. And I don't know if this is going to work or not, but I'm working with a copy, so that's okay. But I'm going to highlight every one of these pictures. In fact, I'll even highlight this one here. And when I go down here, there should be a size mode. And notice it says normal. I'm going to change it to zoom. So I've changed that to zoom. And let's see what that does. Well, notice the pictures and how they've changed. This one I probably don't want to zoom, but the rest of them now I've got the actual albums on here. Looks much, much better than it did before. So what I'm going to do just real quickly is one thing in here. Do I really want to exit the program? Yes. I'm going to click off and click on just this one here. And I'm going to go back down to size mode. I'm just going to make that one normal. All right. You can take a look at all these if you have so inspired to do so. But that looks a heck of a lot nicer than it did before. All right. Now, I'm going to go in and I'm going to create the databases. But before we do, I want to talk about what's in there. All right. I sent you another file this morning, and that second file that I sent you. So I sent you the PDF, and I also sent you a file, and that file basically has got in it all of the database information. All right, so that's this one, garthrecords.txt. Let me bring it up, but I'll bring it up here. I think I've got it in here someplace. There it is. But I'm going to bring it up with a different editor so it looks a little nicer. All right. So what's in here? For right now, just disregard this. We're going to come in and we're going to create a database that's named Garth Brooks DB. Then we're going to make it active by using the use command. Now, what you'll notice is I've got some stuff in here with dash dash. That means comment out. All right. This line right here, this line is how we set up our primary key inside of SQL Server. This line that's right here is how we do the same thing in MySQL. The rest of the lines that are in here, all of these are going to be the same, regardless of the two that we're using. But what I wanted to show you was, for now, just pretend this one here in gray, just pretend, please, it wasn't here. Then we could go in and we could create a brand new table in our Garth Brooks DB or Garth Brooks database that's called albums. It would have 6 fields in it. Our primary key, which we call album ID, our album name, our album artist, our album year, our album description, and our album URL. Now, you'll notice if you look in here that I made these varchars. I don't even know if MySQL supports nvarchar. I guess I've never really looked. But what we're going to do then is we're going to, in fact, I've already done it. I'm going to show it to you in just a moment. Okay. But I've already created the database and I've created the table that has these fields. And then we're going to fill it up with this stuff. So there's 15 albums. All right. And even though I put in here auto increment, I still hard coded in right there. I hard coded in all of the primary keys. They're all hard coded in. Is that a good practice? No, it's not, but it's just the way that I did it. All right. I wanted to make sure there'd be no errors in doing this. Okay. All right. So that's the album ID right there. These 15 things that you see right here, 1 to 15. These 15 things are the titles of each album. Now, each album except for one, right there, the artist is Garth Brooks. In album 9, it says Chris Gaines, even though that is Garth Brooks. I guess it's his alter ego. Then we've got the year that the album came out, and I've got them in chronological order. Didn't have to do that, but that's how I did it. Then we've got a description that I took out from Wikipedia for each one of the albums, and you can see these. I had some problems with these because sometimes there were double quotes within double quotes. So I had to make sure I remove those. All right. And finally, we've got the URL to the album itself. So that's what you see on all these things here. So for example, this one right here. All right. So what ended up happening after I created that is I want to show you what this looks like. And I think it's up and running here. So this is it in PHP My Admin. So I just made a garbage database called GB for Garth Brooks. And it's got this albums in it. All right. These are the things I just showed you. So there's the ID 1 through 15. All right. There's the album name. First one was self-titled, then No Fences, Rope in the Wind, etc. And the last one again is called Fun. The artist, as I mentioned, is Garth Brooks. Every time except in number 9, it's Chris Gaines. Then we've got the album year, which again, they're all in chronologic order. Then it's got the description, and it's just showing this dot, 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 because this is not big enough to hold it. You'll notice that if I come up and if I were to stretch this or try to, it would look a little bit different. So I can actually run queries on this, and there's the URL. All right, so I can actually run queries on this if I want to. So as an example, if I came in here and I typed in select album name from albums where album name like, I don't know, let's say I want something that has a J in it. I don't even know if there is anything with a J in it. All right. So I'm going to click there and I'm going to go. Nope, it looks like there wasn't anything that met that criteria. But on the other hand, if I come back and say, give me something with an A in it, there sure as heck should be something there. And you'll notice there, what do we have? A, A, A. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of these had an A in them. All right. So this is all stuff that I can now do. Well, let's look quickly at the other thing that's in here. All right. So we also have another table in here that's called songs. This is a little bit more complex. These are the songs that are in each album. So again, if you would please, just for now, pretend this stuff in gray isn't here. So you'll notice I have a song ID. And then I have an album ID. All right. So I have a song ID and an album ID. And actually, even though it probably doesn't matter, these really should be flipped because this is the album that the song is in. And that's the song that's in there. So this is album 1, song 1, album 1, song 2, album 1, song 3, etc. So those should be flipped. So please make sure you do that. And I'll mention it again. All right. So what do we have here? We've got this album ID. We've got this song ID. Not even sure if I need this song number in here anymore, to be honest with you. Oh, I see what I did. Okay, okay. So I've got song ID, song number. That's what it is. Okay. So let's clear this up right away. So there's absolutely, I don't want anybody in here to be confused with what I'm doing. Okay. All right. So I need an album ID and a song number. So technically I don't need this field. All right. So let's remove that field. Album ID and song number. Okay. And then song name and song duration. This is just stuff I made up. I actually went out to a site that had all this information. This is actual valid information. So Garth Brooks' self-titled album, Garth Brooks, has 10 songs in it. They're right here. Those are the names. And these are the links. That's the way they had it in there. They had it as a string. So 02:34 for the first one means it's 2 minutes and 34 seconds. There are probably 300 or 400 or whatever albums or songs in here. So what I could have done was I could have said this, well, 2 minutes is 120 seconds plus 34. I could have made this 154 and then just put a number in there. We could have done it that way. I didn't. I mean, it would have been a lot of mathematical calculations, and I just didn't have the wherewithal to want to do that. So what we have here is the album ID. So that's right here. That's the album that the song came in. The song number, and that's here. The song name, and that's here. And the song duration, and that's here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 different things. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So everywhere that I've got in here that it says song ID, I want to change it to album ID. All right. Let's see. So the primary key here will be album ID. I wish I wouldn't have even sent this to you, but I did already. So I'll fix it and resend it. All right. All right. So album ID, right? Okay. What I want to be able to do eventually is I want to be able to come into here to this program that I've shown you. All right. Let me run it again. But what I want to be able to do is to come into here and I want to be able to put, when this comes up and it's got all of our data in it, I want to choose a song and then I want another data grid choose an album here. And I want another data grid view down here that's going to show me all the songs that are in that album. So that's what I'm shooting for. All right. And sorry that I made that mistake earlier. Again, I'll fix it. Okay, but I want to make sure that you do understand. So let me say this one more time. This create songs should have in here only 1, 2, 3, 4 fields. Why? Because there's 1, 2, 3, 4 fields here. So it should have an album ID. That's the same field as this one right here. All right. And then it should have a song number and then a song name and a song duration. Combining the album ID and the song number, that's our primary key. All right. And this foreign key just means, all right, that we want to be able to join these two tables together, which is eventually what we're going to want to do. That'll probably be next week. All right. But I've got all the information now, at least I believe I do. I believe I got all of it that I need. All right. So what I will do is this. The first thing I want to do is I'm not going to make copies. I'm not going to do a flaming thing. All right. But let's do this. Let me put this in here. And I'm going to put in here MySQL version. All right. And then I will have all of that stuff that's in here as far as setting up each table. So I'll have each table. Then I'll have SQL Server version. You don't have to do a thing with the MySQL version. We're only going to be concerned with the SQL Server version. The only reason I did this is that's something we've already used. So let me come in here. In fact, let's make it as simple as possible. Okay. All right. So here's our thing for our albums table. I'm going to undo this. I'm going to get rid of this, which is, again, that's the way we do it in SQL Server. So I'm going to attempt to go in and create this database in just a moment. And it'll have all of this, it'll have this table with all of this stuff in it, and then we'll attempt to put in these records. Then we'll attempt to add another table and put in those records. All right, so let's see. I don't need that anymore then. And I think I've got both of these in here. Yes, I do. So I can get rid of this and undo that and undo that and undo that. So one last time, what I'm going to attempt to do literally in a matter of minutes is to come in, create a new database in SQL Server. All right. I won't have to do this because I'll create the database myself. But then I'm going to attempt to come in here and do all of the rest of this stuff and see if I can get it to work. Now, you might even say, that's fine, Jeff, but why? I mean, who the heck even cares? Because what we had done previously in here is we had hard coded those 15 pieces of information in there. They were put into a list. But what if we were trying to do this? What if we were creating an internet, the equivalent of IMDb, the Internet Movie Database? What if we were attempting to do this for all of the albums? So we had an IADB, an Internet Album Database, and we had millions of these. We wouldn't want to be creating all these ourselves. That wouldn't make any sense. We want to be able to come in and use a database. All right, so that's what I'm going to attempt to do in just a moment. All right, so again, this will be, we'll go in and manually create the database, then we'll make it active like this. Then I'm going to literally just go and copy this in to see if it'll create a table for us. Then I'm going to go in and manually copy this in, and I'll double check it first to make sure everything looks good. And then we'll do the same thing with songs. And after we do, we'll move on from there with the idea that what we'd like to be able to do is when we run this, all right, is when we run this, it still says it's running, but I don't think it is. What we want to be able to do, whoops, when we run this, we get rid of that. And we go to here and we click load data. We want this to load up from our database. That's what we want to do today. All right, so let me go in and start working on this and we'll see how it goes. So I'm coming back into here. And again, if you did not notice how I did this before, you have to go in and you have to download Microsoft Server Management Studio. All right, and then come in, click on here. Once you've got it in there and you've got it installed, come down to SQL Server Tools 18. It should be at least pretty close. I don't remember when I actually installed this, but I'm going to come in here then. And it comes up with Management Studio. You already saw this. All right. Now I'm going to take a quick screenshot of this and I'm going to save it. All right. Just so I've got a copy of this. That's all. I don't know if I'll need it or not, but I'm going to grab this. Now I've got that information in case I do need it. Okay. All right. So I'm going to connect, which brings me up here. And now I'm going to go to databases. You'll notice that if I go to databases here and I open it, I don't even know what GD is, but I have nothing named Garth Brooks or Garth Brooks DB. So I'm going to create that right now. Okay. And I'm going to keep I don't know if it'll matter if I put this in uppercase, lowercase, mixed case. All right. But I'm going to come in here. I'm going to do a new database. Let's try first with mixed case. All right. It comes up and it looks like this. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to type in Garth Brooks DB. Now, we talked a little bit about this. You may or may not remember this from before. All right. And I may even end up screwing this up. I won't try to, but I may end up screwing this up. All right. So I am going to attempt to create a brand new database in here. I don't remember if I clicked add and then OK or just OK. So let's try it with just OK. All right. There's Garth Brooks DB. So I do have the database. All right. So following those steps that we looked at earlier, whoops, what that is saying is that I did go in, and I'm assuming, again, you did the install yourselves. All right. And then we opened it. We found the database folder. We created a new database. So we've done the first 4 steps. So now we're going to attempt to go in and create a table. All right. So there are different ways that you can do this. I can right mouse click on here and I can choose, well, I can go and click this arrow here, and under tables, there aren't any tables we've created yet, but I can right mouse click and do a new table, which is totally fine. All right. If you want to do that, that's totally fine. But what I'm going to do instead, since I've already given you this information in here, all right, I'm going to attempt to actually just use this that I've got right here. So I've got an album ID, all right, an album name, an album artist, an album year, an album description, and an album URL. So I'm going to just grab all of this information right there. And rather than manually keying it in, because I'm trying to save us a little bit of time, I'm going to right mouse click on this and choose copy. Then I'm going to come into here, and under my Garth Brooks DB right here, I'm going to right mouse click and I'm going to choose new query. And this brings up a little query box, very similar to the query box that we saw when we were working in PHPMyAdmin. Then I'm going to paste that in. Now you'll notice it doesn't like something that's in here. So it doesn't like int. All right, does it take integer? It doesn't look like it. So let's go back and very quickly see if we can fix this. Like I said, that's why I'll make sure I give you an updated version of this that works. It's the only error that's being flagged in here. All right, so let's go in and let me search for SQL Server data types. All right, somewhere in here it's going to give them to me. SQL Server data types. All right, and we got float, we got real, we got char, we got text. Here I'm looking. According to this, it does have an int type, but let's see. According to that, it's got int. Maybe it doesn't want a number. So let's try it with int without a number. So let's leave it at int, and we'll do that. There you go. Now that's gone. So I'm going to try to keep updating on here too. Okay. So if this works now, what are we going to do? We're going to create a new table in here that's not in there right now that will be called albums. All right. The ID will be an integer. It will start at 1 and it'll go up by 1. This is basically the same thing as auto increment. All right. It's going to have a primary key. Okay. And it'll have a name, which is a varchar of size 100, an artist, which is a varchar of size 100, a year, which is an integer, a description, which is a text field, and a URL, which is a varchar of 250. Now, I don't know if this will work or not, but to get it to work, you've got to go over to where it's green right here, and it says execute. Very similar to the button we use to run our programs. So let me click. And it says commands completed successfully. That's good. If there's an error, the error will be in there. All right, so I'm going to highlight all of this. I'm going to remove it. Then I'm going to come over to here. All right. And under my Garth Brooks, I'm going to right mouse click on this and I'm going to choose refresh. Why? Because I want to see if under tables, there's my albums table. There it is. All right. And I would strongly suggest that when you're going through this yourselves, you take the tape and get ready to turn it off and turn it on and pause it or do whatever. So I'm going to go back up to here again. I'm going to right mouse click on here and I'm going to choose, I don't even have to choose new query. I can keep working right in here. But I'm going to come in now and I'm going to attempt to grab those 15 albums that you saw right here. Now, I don't know if there'll be any errors in here. I decided to do this literally right in front of you. So if something is going to be screwed up, you'll see it right when I see it. All right. So I'm attempting to come in here and I am attempting to go in and insert into the albums table 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fields, a field with the ID, even though I don't technically have to do that. All right. You know what? We set that up as an auto increment field right here. So let's remove these. Let's see if we can get this to work without this. So I'm going to remove the album ID and I'm going to remove it from each one of these. Okay. Again, this may not work, but this is the time for me to try stuff and see if it works or it doesn't work, and then give you the final product that does work. So I've now got everything in there. I'm going to copy it to the clipboard. Now, when I come back in and I paste it in here, if there's a bunch of red squiggly lines, something is screwed up. All right. So let me paste. Okay, and it looks like it doesn't like something, so let's look. Insert into albums, invalid object name albums. All right, let's try dbo.albums. Well, that's it there. So I don't know what it doesn't like, so I'm not sure. All right. Now, sometimes when it does this, and I don't know why, it gives you this error and there isn't an actual error. So even though it's saying right now it doesn't like anything I'm doing in here, all right, I'm still going to click the execute and see if it works. Okay, that's okay. It's giving me errors, but at least it gives me something now to work with. All right. So it says there the maximum length is too long. It should be, that should have been 128, and I made it longer than that. All right. So that's the problem with all of these. This description is too long. Okay. Even though with the description, even though if we go back and we look in here under tables, okay, if I come in here and I look under columns, notice I made this description a text field. So I'm not sure why it's actually saying it's too long, but it is. So there's something about it that it doesn't like. So we've got to figure out what that is. So it says here, the identifier that starts with Garth Brooks is the debut solo album, etc. All right, release then through this is too long. Maximum length is 128. Well, let's go back and I'll start cutting this down. See if I can get it to work this way. All right. So let's go back to here. Okay. And I don't know. So I'm going to remove a lot of stuff from here. There we go. So I've removed from here a lot of the information that was in there. So it says Garth Brooks is the debut studio album of American country artist Garth Brooks, released on April 12th, 1989. Now, I'm looking in here. So if this is, it says here that I'm at column 78. And when I get down to here, it's 190. So that's 112 characters. So that appears like that isn't going to be too big. So no fences is the second one, released there. So I'm going to do the same thing on all of these. So in other words, I'm cutting down the description quite a bit. And I didn't know if I'd have to do anything like this, but you're seeing it right as I'm doing it. From there. Just about got everything out of there I wanted out of there. There. All right. So let's see. I'm going to really cut this down. Go. Sorry you're watching me kind of, hopefully you don't think I'm wasting my time or your time, but it is what it is. I was under, I guess, the mistaken presumption that these could be wider than they are. So So again, hopefully what you can see here is what I'm trying to do is really cut this stuff down. All right. So I've got 4 of them done. I may have to end up doing this again. I don't know. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them are done. So again, hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. I'm just grabbing each one of these and I'm trying to cut down the number of characters that are in there because for whatever reason it didn't like the number that I put in there. Okay. So I'm up to number 9 of 15. Sorry again about this. So I now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 of these done. So let's finish up the last 4. We shouldn't have any of these problems with the next one. Do that. Okay, two more, I'm sorry. All right, one more to go. Now, I could have made some mistakes when I moved all this stuff over. Knowing me, I probably did. All right, so what I've attempted to do, and I'm going to take a break in just a moment, but what I've attempted to do here is to put all this stuff in there. So there's the 15, and I really cut down on the description, so hopefully it's not going to be too long, and we'll see now if this works. And if it doesn't, I'll have to take a break and figure out what the problem is after the break. All right. Now, still getting a bunch of errors. So let's see if I run this, if I get the same problem or something else. All right. It says the identifier that starts with this is longer than the maximum length. But the good news is it's only given me a couple errors. All right. So hopefully I can work around these errors. They're all in line 15. They're all in this one that's right here. And they're, I should say that level 15, line 12 and line 18. So what I'll do is I'll come back after a quick break and I'll see if I can fix this. Again, you're going to get the working one, and the other one we shouldn't have this problem with. So let's see. That's the one with Chris Gaines. So we are going to have problems with that one, it appears. Try to remove all of this right there. See if that'll fix it. All right. So that's the one with that one. So let me try it again. All right. Incorrect syntax near line 18. Near comma. Well, it looks like for this one right here, I lost everything that was in there. Oh, goodness. Yep, I did. Copy that. in. Now let's see if I fixed it. So, oh, it's giving me errors all over the place. See if I can figure out why. Album name, Chris Brooks, artist, Brooks, album year. That should be okay. All right, I'm going to come back, like I said, and check on this. So let me look at the syntax for doing an insert into SQL Server. Insert into values. That looks correct to me. I think I don't need. Let's try it. Let's see it without it once. Well, we'll figure it out. Let me give me 5 minutes and then we'll come right back to it. Mm. All right, I'm back, and I'm not sure if this was the problem or not, but you need single quotes in here, and I'd been using double quotes, so I don't know if this will fix it or not fix it, but I'm going to try. 15 rows affected. Look at that. It means it worked. So how do I know that it worked? Just to show you, if I come in and type in select star from albums and I run that query, there's my data right down there. It's all in there. And if I drag this out, there is my URL and there is my description. Okay, so everything is fine and dandy. Not only that, I did not have to go in, and when I did this, I did remove doesn't look like it in here, but I removed these. So I did not put in the album ID. Now, since I didn't put the album ID in right here, I have to remove it from here as well. And again, you're going to get all of this stuff, and it's all going to work in just a little bit. Okay. There we go. In fact, just so there's no problem with people understanding what I just went over with you, let me save this. So now this works, but let me go back into here. All right. And I'm going to remove this database that I just created. All right. I'm going to right mouse click on it and I'm going to choose delete. And it'll say, you sure you want to delete that? Yes, I am. And I'm going to at least try to, and it may or may not let me because it's open, etc. But let's see. Probably should have shut everything down first, and I did not. So it says error occurred. It says drop failed for the database. All right, I'm going to try it again just in case. So let's see. All right, so delete it. Again, it may not work. It may still give me an error, and that's okay. So I'm going to recreate it, and I'll just give it a new name. Totally fine. So like I said, if this fails, that's okay. Really shouldn't have had these open either. So let me try removing those. So I'm going to remove this. No, there. Now let's see if I can get rid of it. And it's gone. All right, so I'm going to come back and I'm going to recreate it. And I'm just going to go to databases, new database. We'll give this one a different name. So I'll just call it Garth DB. Okay, capital Garth, capital D, capital B. All right, so there it is. And I'm going to click OK. And there's Garth DB. So I've got the database. Now I'm going to right mouse click on the database and I'm going to choose new query. Okay. Then I'm going to go and I'm going to grab all of the information that I've got that you will have from right here, which will first create the table. Okay. All right. So go back into here and paste that in. Tell it to run it. Notice there's no errors showing. So if I click the execute button here, it says commands completed successfully. That's good. So I'm going to remove everything that's in here. I can remove this as well. It doesn't really matter. It's just a message. And then I'm going to come back into here and I'm going to grab all of that information that I just showed you, copy it to the clipboard, paste it in. All right. And it is now, it did give me a couple errors and that's on me. So I'll have to fix that for you too. Now, like in rope in the wind here, I've got to remove every place in here that I've got an extra single quote. So notice rope in, that one's got to be removed now from there and from here. Okay, that was on me. So let me, I'll just grab all this now with all this in it. I'm going to make sure everything's working. So I'm going to paste that in. I am getting errors up here, but it's okay. I'm not getting any down here. And I'm going to tell it to execute that query. Again, it says 15 rows affected, which means it added 15 new rows into my table. I'm going to remove this and I'm going to come in here and again, type in select star from albums. And down here now, I should get my 15 records of album information. Let's see if I do. And there it is. All right, so that one is done. It's clean, it's good. So I'm going to remove this. All right, this, I don't think you can actually remove that, but it'll be removed in a moment. So I now have in here, I have my albums table. Let's see if we can put in the songs table and maybe not get as many errors as we got the first time. All right, so album ID int 11, song number int 3, song name, song duration. All right, primary key, which is the concatenated album ID and song number, and the foreign key where album ID in songs references the album ID in the albums table. Let's see if it takes this. And if I have errors, I'll fix them up. Now the good news, remember for the int, it appears as though it does not want a number in there. So let me remove those numbers. So that got, that got rid of those errors. All right. Now here it says doesn't like this. References invalid table albums. Well, fresh. DBO albums. Doesn't like that either. Now I'm hoping, like I said, this is kind of a quirky product. That's why I thought of just doing all of it using MySQL. But I wanted to do this because I wanted you to be exposed to this. Let's see if this gives me an error when I run it. Just in case it does not, I'm going to copy all of it right there. And I'm going to tell it to execute. And it says commands completed successfully. So if I go back and I refresh in here again, I should now have two tables. There's albums and there's songs. So even though it gave me an error there, and I don't know why it did, it worked okay. All right, so I'll paste that in so you've got that. Now, this may give me an error because notice it starts in here on line 42 and it goes all the way down to line 298. So in other words, there's about 255 to 260 lines in here. I don't know how big in here the actual buffer is for you to hold information. So it may not like this. I don't know. All right, but I'm going to try it anyway. So I'm going to highlight all of it. If I have to, I'll break it up into sections. That's no big thing. But there's all of it. I'm going to copy it to the, before I do that, I again want to come in there and change all these double quotes to single quotes. So let me do that first. Let me highlight all this and do a search and replace in here. And again, I will replace all double quotes with single quotes. Place all. Hopefully that was good and it did everything it had to do. We'll find out. Copy that to the clipboard. Again, if I get an error message, the buffer area may be too big. Okay, I'm looking in here. I want to look and see if it gives me any weird color errors in here. That I'm expecting almost. If these are all like this and they're all red, that's actually a good thing. All right, well, let's see. I'm going to run the query. It put in 254 rows. So again, if I come back up here and I type in select star from songs and I tell it to execute, there is my data. There are my 254 Garth songs that are in there. All right. So I'm not going to run any more queries right now, but the good news is all of the information that I put in there now all works. So in other words, I will resend this file out to you, I promise, as soon as I'm done today. But it should be totally clear of errors right now. You don't have to put in this use command either, as long as you're already in the database. So you have to manually go in and create the database yourself. If you follow those steps, then if you paste in this by itself, then this by itself, then this by itself, and then the last one by itself, you should be good. It should allow you to create the two tables and put in your associated data with it. All right. Okay, now I've got, hold on a second. All right. So that's the first thing. And that was actually a really big thing. Okay. So now what we're going to do, we've come in, I told you about the install for SQL Server Management Studio. So we went through all that stuff. All right. We created an albums table. We created a songs table. We created a Garth DB database. All right. So we've done a whole bunch of stuff. But one thing that's in here that I do want to change. All right. So let me go back to here and I'm going to get rid of this one. Yes, I want to stop the debugging. Okay, so the only one I've got running now is this one. This is my actual, the real program. All right. And again, you can see that the pictures are all screwed up again. I'm going to fix that in just a moment. But when I go here to main page and I click load, it does give me my data. So you can see all that information is in there. The problem again with this currently is it's getting the data from that list. So we are hard coding in the data. It's not getting the data from the actual database. That's what we want to do. So give me a second here. Go back to here and I'm going to exit. I want to do this because otherwise I know I'm going to forget. So let me highlight all 15 of these pictures. Not this big one over here, but the 15 pictures. And I'm going to go down again to image size mode, and I'm going to choose zoom. Okay, that should have changed it all. I'm going to save and run it again and see if my album covers look nice now, and they do. All right, much more professional than it looked before. All right, so let me exit from here now and let's go on. All right. So now previously, when we were in this music library and we were in our album DAO that was in here, this is all we had. Okay. And when we went in, we had this album class. This isn't going to change. But in our main form here, all right, and I'm going to view the code here, we were hard coding all this stuff into this load music data. So these were all being hard coded in. There's, again, it's not so much that there's anything wrong with doing that. All right. The problem is that if you've got thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of these, it's not going to make a whole lot of sense to go over and do it like that. It just won't. All right. So we now have a database, and that database has the information in it that we need. All right. Okay. All righty. So first thing I'm going to do here then is I'm going to go to albums DAO, and I don't need this line anymore. I'm just going to comment it out. I can remove it as well. It doesn't matter. All right. So what I want to do is this is going to, if you remember, we talked about this kind of thing before. Whoops. I want to say here var. Don't know why it's doing that, but it is. All right. And I'm going to say con string. That's going to be my connection string is equal to. So let me put var in here again. See if it'll take it now. All right. So my connection string is going to be equal to and data. It's got to be in double quotes. Data source equal, and this is what I'm showing you right now is you will want to put this in as well. When we started here, all right, we've got all this stuff in here. You've already seen it. Okay. I've got my two tables in here. I've got my database in here. Everything is cool right now. All right. But I'm just going to do a file exit for right now so I can get out of here. Oops. I'm going to say cancel because what I want to do is I want to exit this. So let's see. You close that. There we go. And I'm going to close this. When you're done with your queries, if it says you want to save it, just say no. All right. So that's not open anymore. Okay. So I want to get back into my program. There it is. Okay. All right. And when I did come up before, and now I can't close this. When I did come up before and I did this, this is what I want to show you. All right. Is when I come back into here. There you are. There you go. And I open this up and it comes up and it shows this. All right. Right here, this thing in blue, this local DB, that is my data source. So I'm going to copy that. All right. And I'll tell you what, I'll just reconnect again. It's not going to matter one way or the other. But for my data source here, I'm going to paste that in. So yours should be the same thing to my knowledge. All right. So that is local DB and then MSSQL local DB. All right. Then I have to give it the name of the database. Now I think I called it Garth DB, but I'm going to double check. So I'm going to go to databases and there's Garth DB. Okay. So I'm going to come in here and say initial catalog equal, and that was Garth DB. All right. And then we're going to see if we can get away with just putting only one more thing in here so you don't have to put in a whole boatload of stuff. All right. So this is the connection string I'm attempting to set up in here right now. So integrated security equals SSPI. All right. Now it doesn't like the word var, and I'm not sure why. So let's see if we can figure that out. It says the contextual keyword var may only appear within a local variable declaration or in script code. So it doesn't like it right there. Well, I'm going to see if I can just for now make it a string because that shouldn't, it isn't double quotes, so it shouldn't mind that. All right. Okay, so under this, we want to say public. I think it's the same thing we had. Well, it's almost the same thing. Public list should still recognize album here, and it does. All right. But what we're going to call is something we're going to put in a routine in here that's called get albums. All right, why? Because this is where we'll want to get all of our albums. We'll call it get all albums. All right, I got to change mine in my code that I'm using as well. All right, now let's see. It's giving us an error right now because it says not all paths return a value. It's supposed to be returning a list of albums. It's not returning anything because there's no code in there. So let's start with an empty list. All right, and we'll call this what it is. Albums to return. And we'll set that equal to a new list of albums. And that error line should be going away in just a moment. Now I'm going to say I want to attempt we need paren there. There we go. And then I'm going to say, well, let's comment all this stuff out. Begin with an empty list. All right. Now I'm going to say attempt to connect to SQL server. And that will be SQL connection. Now it's not finding it. Don't worry about that. All right. Connection equals a new SQL connection. And we have to pass it in that connection string. So let's fix that because it's not recognizing anything. All right. So if we take our mouse and put it here, it says, do you want to add using? Yes, we do. And you'll notice that got rid of all that stuff. All right. Now, let's see. I think this, maybe I'm wrong here. Looking at my own notes, I think that should be constring. Okay. All right. Then we want to come in and we want to open our connection to the server. And then there'll be some more code that we want to put in here in just a bit. So we'll just say more code here. Okay. And then we will return our albums to return. All right. The good news is we have no errors in here now. There are no errors in here. All right. Now we're not done, of course, but we've got a good start right here. So what have I done? I want to take it from the top. We ended up adding in here this line because it didn't understand what we were trying to do. All right. It looks like there's some lines here I can get rid of. So for now, at least I'm going to do that. I'm back in my music library. And in my music library, I'm on my album DAO.cs. Okay. So what are we doing in here? Well, we don't need this anymore. This is the way we were connecting before. So we set up a connection string. We let it know the name of our server. All right. We let it know the name of our database. And we let it know that we're using the built-in integrated security. All right. Then we put in here, or we're putting in here, a new method that's called get all albums. All right. And then that get all albums, we began with an empty list that's called albums to return. It's a list of albums, and there's nothing in there right now. Nothing in there. Then we attempted to connect to SQL server. So we said the connection is equal to a new connection, and we passed it in that. All right. Once we've done that, then we have to actually open the connection. Then we'll add some more code here, and we're going to return all these. Ideally, what's going to happen soon is when we run this program, it's not going to look any different except for the fact that it's going to be getting the data from a database, and it's not going to be hard-coded in anymore. All right. So let's go back. Let's do a file save all. And let's go back into our main form. Okay. All right. And in our main form, I'm going to right mouse click on here and I'm going to view my code. And now I'm going to get rid of all this stuff that I have in this routine that we call load music data. So I'm going to get rid of all 15 of these. And I'm going to get rid of the add statements. Well, that really cut down on the amount of code that I have in here. All right. So notice we're getting an error here because it doesn't know what we're talking about. So I am going to come in here and say albums, DAO, albums, DAO, ho, equal, new, albums, DAO. All right, that's a start. All right. Now, we want to connect to our grid view again. Trying to figure out why it doesn't like this. Let's see, show potential fixes. Generate. Don't want to do any of this. So, well, we'll have to see if we can figure that out as we get going here. All right. DAO. Now, when I run this, we should get an empty list back. What I'm more concerned with, though, is that I haven't broken anything. So file, save all. Let's run this. Getting that. There's my main page. But now if I click load data, I should just get my headings. Okay, that's good. Actually, it's right now working the way that it's supposed to be working. We haven't done all the code yet that's going to allow us to go in and hook onto the database. All right. All righty. Now, if you go in and you take a look in here, before we do all this, I just wanted to show you this. You are going to have to go in and make some changes to your program. Like what? Like right now, this load data is over here and the splash screen is over here. Now I have moved them so that they're up on top. So when we run this and we click the load data, all right, it's still doing the same thing. When we click the splash screen, it's still doing the same thing. But what we want to be able to do is when we click this album search, if there's nothing in this box, we want it to run just like we did the load data and just show me everything. But if I put in here L or love and I click album search, it should find all the albums with the word love in them. Now to do this, what's new in here? Well, this is BTN load data. That's not new. This is BTN splash screen. That's not new. This is DGV albums. That's not new. This is new, this button, and I called it BTN album search, no blank space in between there. And this I call TXT album search. So I want you to fix your project so it looks like this. All right. So we've added all that stuff. Okay. Now that's all fine and dandy, but what the heck do we want to do in here? All right. What do we want to do? Well, we want to come in here in album search right now, it's not doing anything. All right. That's why when you click on it, absolutely nothing happens. All right. So what do we want to do in here? Well, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to load, but not load all music data like we did before. All right. So remember, I changed this. Where is it? This should be load all music data. I think that's what we called it up here. All. Okay. And all right here. Okay. So boom, that's everything. Again, I'm going to keep running it to make sure I'm not breaking anything. Okay, I'm not. And that's good. All right. So this is loading everything, but in here, I don't want to do that. All right. I don't want to load all music data. I only want to load some of it. So I'm going to grab this stuff that's right here. All right. So right here, previously in here, what were we doing? Well, in load data, we're calling load all music data, which is doing all this stuff. All right. Well, I want to grab this, but I'm going to change this to load search music data. Okay. And I'm going to write that right down here. So private void load search music data. All right, right there. Okay. Okay. Now the problem is right now there's going to be a mismatching. Okay. I'm just going bopping back and forth between these two. All right. Okay. I'm sorry. I've got a phone call, so I'm going to have to pause for just a moment. Okay. I'll be right back. All right. Sorry about that. I'm trying to get in an appointment to see my dentist. So that was them on the phone. Okay. So I have two routines. This one right here, this load all music data, is going to attempt to load everything. All right. And this will attempt to only load, all right, it'll attempt to only load what matches in our search criteria. Okay. So let's see. Looking here on my notes. All right. And I'm going to stop the run here. And I'm going to go back to my albums DAO, and I want to take a quick look at this. So we're going to have to put some code in there to get this to work. All right. So let's talk about what we want to have happen in there that's not happening right now. All right. We basically want to go in and we want to do the equivalent here. I mean, right now you've seen this, you already saw it. So let me do a file save all and let me run it again. Okay. It's actually doing exactly what we told it to do right now. Okay. And that is when we come in here, we click load data. It's not loading anything. Why? Because we haven't told it to load anything. So where I've got the more code here, let's put that code in and see if we can get it to actually load data from our database. All right. So right after we open our connection here, let's put in this. So let's see. All right. Let's come in. We'll do this first. See if we can get this to work. All right. So what we have to do here, whoops, what we want to do here then is we want to define the SQL statement that we need to get all albums. Okay. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to say SQL command, we'll just call it command, equals new SQL command. All right. And then we will put in our command here. So command dot command text equal, and this is pretty long. Okay. So sorry, I don't know any other way to do it than this. Select the album ID, the album name, the album artist, the album description, and the album URL. Now, just so you know, could I have put star in there? The answer is yes. So why didn't I put star in there? Because putting star in when you are combining databases and programming can really lead to some issues. And what I mean by that is there's a whole thing that's called SQL injection, where you can have basically somebody can put things into a query or into something into a database in program that they shouldn't and possibly harm data or do other things. So I just did it like this. So I'm going to select this from albums where, and you can see that the only words that are fully capitalized in here, all right, the only words that are fully capitalized are the keywords. All right, so where album name is like that term that we're looking for. And we're going to see whether or not this works in just a second. You're going to know when I know. All right. So we're basically, again, telling it to come in here, and we're defining an SQL statement that's going to get all of our albums. And this is going to be basically, it's going to say this, whatever term we put in here, there could be something before it, there could be something after it, but eventually when we come in here and we work on this and we're working with a search phrase, etc., we have to basically tell it what we're looking for. Now, if that doesn't make any sense, then just hold on for a second. So next is command dot parameters dot add with value. All right, ampersand term, ampersand term, and then our search phrase. What doesn't it like here? So let's see if we can figure it out. Okay, whatever error was there is left. All right, so we've got that. And then we have to say connection, command dot connection equals our connection. Okay. Now, we're not done yet. Okay. But there's a few more things that we want to do. Well, first of all, we open our connection to the server right here. So right before we finish, we are going to close our connection to the server. We're not done yet, but we opened it, we should close it. If you are ignorant of the process or you're forgetful or whatever, when the program stops running, it'll close it. But that's just not a good way of doing things. All right. So we're going to put in here, and this is from the book, one of those using statements. So I'm going to say using. Remember, all we're attempting to do right here is to print out or show on the screen all of the all of the records that we have in the database. In this case, all of the albums. Right, so this is what we want to do with it for whatever, this is going to actually fill up, ideally, at least if I did it correctly, that grid that you saw that only had the headings in there. It should fill it up with the actual data. So basically while there's records, which is what that's saying. All right. And we're going to grab every piece of data. So the album ID is going to be equal to reader.get int 32 0. Okay, that's not a good start, is it? For album ID, yes, it does. Oh, it's what we called it here, so it's ID. That's okay. Remember, we're dealing with code now. this is just ID. Should get rid of all the errors, and these are commas. This is one big statement. Album name equals reader dot get string, and that's field number 1. Album artist equal reader dot get string 2. Album year, this is going to give us an error, I believe. No, it's not. Album year is going to be equal to reader dot get int 32 3. Album description is equal to reader dot get string 4. And finally, album URL is going to be equal to reader dot get string 5. Now, you might look at that and it might make total sense to you and it might make nonsense to you. So let's, take a look at it and see what this is. This is going back in here. This is going back into, and I think there has to be a semicolon there. All right. This is going back into the actual album class that we created. In that album class, there's an ID, an album name, an album artist, an album year, an album URL, and an album DESC. All right, they're right there. And here are the same things. Now, I'm looking here and notice, for whatever reason, when I first created this, and I don't know why, I should have really flipped these because I put the URL after the description. I don't think it would hurt if I did it like that. I don't think just manually changing like that is going to hurt anything. I guess we'll find out. All right. So let's see, we're coming back into here. And now we're at the end of that while loop. So after this, I want to say albums to return dot add a. So I'm attempting to come in here now and add each one of these things in here. Now, is this going to work? I don't know. All right. So I'm going to find out right now, and then we're going to go back and revisit it. First news is, it's always good, it didn't break anything. Now it did. All right, it says cast is not valid. Album A equal new album. So it does not like something that we're doing in here right now. All right. And you know what? If this is it for today, then that's it. But I want to make sure that this works. So album A equals new album. This is not valid. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the details. That should copy them to the clipboard. And then I'm going to come over to here and paste that in. All right, that's just showing me where my error is. So specified cast is not valid. See if I missed anything. How's that? I'm going to try to actually just change this and make it real simple. I am going to try putting a star in here and just putting in a star. Select star from albums, just period. Not even worrying about the term or whatever. Just like that. I may have to put the term in there, but I'm trying to just, I'm trying to get it to work. Where album name like and then the parameters. Connection. Here. It's giving me a bad cast. This is our ID. Should be just fine. That's our name, which is a string. That's our artist, which is a string. That's our year, which is an int. That's our description, which is a string, and that's our URL, which is a string. Well, not sure what the problem is. The good news is the program's running. The bad news is as soon as I attempt to access the database, it stops running. So I'm going to have to go back and check my code. And I think I'm going to call it a class period right now. I'm sorry about this, but I don't know what else to do until I get this fixed. So what we want to do then, and we'll pick it up here tomorrow, is what I want is when we run this, and I go to here and I click the load data, I want this to fill up with all the information, but from the database. Then I'm going to go and copy the code from the load data once I get it to work and change it so that it comes in here and allows me to do a search. All right, right now, again, that's not working. And you already saw that if I click load data, oh, well, look at that. It gave me the data. Well, that's pretty interesting. It didn't break, and I'm getting the data now where I should be, at least from the database, to my knowledge. Let me stop the run. Let me do a file save all. All right. Let me go back to here and view my code, and you'll notice, don't worry about these images. That's no big thing. I should be able to fix that just a bit. But that's just the images I've got up here. I want to change that so I'm actually using the ones from so that I'm actually going to be using the ones that are from online. Then I don't have to use this in here. But the point is this: when you look in here and you go to, yeah, those are just the images. this is my splash screen. Here's my main one. If I go over to my main form now, what you'll notice is all that data that we had in here was gone. That loading the music data. All right, it's all gone. And now when we come in here and we click here and we load, it's loading, but it's loading from the database. Hello. So I don't have to stop. We can go on. All right. But what we want to have happen is now when we click this, if we come in here and we put in something, so if I put in hello and it finds something, it should only give me the albums that have hello in them. All right. So what I want to do before we do anything else is I think I'm going to go for about 5 more minutes and then that's going to be it today. But I want to go through everything that we've done and everything that's been changed in here. So if you bear with me for a minute. All right. First thing I'm going to try to do in here, I want to see if this will work. And if it doesn't, hey, you already saw the luck I'm having today with a lot of stuff. So let's see. Like I said, I'm just trying something right now, and that is this. I'm going to grab every bit of these, open up a new window. All right. You don't know what I'm doing, you will in about 2 minutes. All right, what I'm trying to do is to come in here and replace all of those. I don't want to have to worry about all of those images that I have in here. They provide bloat onto the program. If I can get them from the internet, why shouldn't I try to get them from the internet is what I'm saying. Okay, at least that's what I'm going to try to do. So let's see, do this and this and this and this. That's 4 of them. And if this doesn't work, it's no biggie, one or the other. This was just something I thought of the other day, that why am I doing this? Why am I adding those images myself when they're already out there and on the internet? Now, the only one that might be screwed up is the one with Chris Gaines, because I removed some of the stuff that was in there, so I might have to fix that. That's no big thing. All right, then I want to go back and review everything that we've done today, because I think it's what's really important is that every day we go through this, I show you exactly what has been done